Hey, it's Patricia Baker, and it's Thursday, so we're live on Facebook. Welcome, and for those of you who are joining, I'm glad that you're here. Always my pleasure to come on and talk with you. So today's topic is nobody gets me, and so I have a beautiful 12-year-old daughter who feels like nobody gets her, as most teens do. So I hear this expression a lot in our home, and it's a common theme, and I always like to talk about things that are kind of going on in my life and relevant and pertinent. Um, I also spend a lot of time on social media watching different chat groups, people with diabetes, and how they're feeling. And it's a common thread that people who suffer with diabetes feel like nobody understands. And so I really wanted to spend some time talking about that today, and really just exploring what that is, and then offer you some suggestions. Excuse me. So nobody gets me, nobody understands, right? We have that quite frequently, and the truth is, no one does. Nobody can ever really understand what it's like to be you and to be in your skin. When we feel this way, it's usually because we feel disconnected. We feel alone or isolated. And so we see through our own lens that the world looks different and we feel different. And it's in this disconnectedness that we feel probably most vulnerable and feel like we're not understood. So what we're seeking is to connect with people. Actually, we want people to see us, to be known. I think one of the greatest desires of the human experience is for you to be known, for someone to know who you are and understand what you are about. I think when we get stuck in this place, we feel alone, we feel by ourselves, and we just don't think anybody really understands who we are. And the truth is, as I said, no one does. So we are the only people in our skin and in our experience that will have the view of what you do. Like we're the only ones who really know what's going on with us. I'd like to show you a page out of my book that talks about this, and I think hopefully it can be helpful. I'm going to try to read this while I hold it up for you to see. So this may be a mystical, magical trick here that I'm going to do. So that is the book. I'm backwards. Does that work? Okay, so what it's saying, I hope you can hear me, is from your ship, and that is crooked. From your ship, you will have an amazing view. You will see beautiful, wonderful, and surprising things. Places and people, songs and colors, sunsets and sunrises, water and wind. I'm all over the place. I want you to notice, enjoy, and remember your adventures. You are the only one who will ever see what you see. And the point of this book is, and I know it's kind of hard to see, this is my my book, my children's book, and Dragonfly is in his spaceship looking out. And in my book, Dragonfly represents your soul or yourself. And he is flying around in a spaceship, which represents your body and how we travel in this world. So in this image, Dragonfly is looking out of his spaceship onto the world. And this is his view. And the point here is that you are the only person that will ever look out your eyes and know what it's like to be you. You're the only one, history of time, space, energy, anything, that will ever have your unique experience, which is a little bit humbling, right? That's somewhat scary. But if you take it a step further, that's the purpose, right? We get to have this unique experience. So when we get in this state of feeling like no one gets us, there's only a couple ways out. There's two things that you can really do in my experience. So one is to tell people. If you feel like no one understands you, A, nobody could read your mind, which is a good thing, right? We don't want people reading in our mind. And B, we have to tell them. So no one will really understand you. And I think one of the things I talk with my daughter too is that nobody is walking around really thinking about you all that much. The human condition is we all are very self-aware and self-concerned. So we're like, what's happening to me? What's going on with me? Why did she say that? I bet they think this. The truth is we don't know what other people think about us. And so if we want them to understand us, the only way to do that is to share. And so the hard part about that is it requires vulnerability. So you run the risk of sharing something about yourself and that somebody might not like it, they might reject it. And so most of us keep kind of quiet and small. But if you want the reward of connection, if you want to feel like you are known and you matter to someone else, you have to take this risk. Unfortunately, it just doesn't happen on its own. So what you must do is tell your story. Tell some part of your story. And that's the only way that anybody is really going to understand. Now, the best part about this is there's several ways that you can do it that doesn't require eye-to-eye contact, because that's really scary. Over time, you can get better with that. And I can even talk about being on video. This is something a year ago I would have thought I'm never going to do. Several years ago, I started a blog, and it was really hard to write my thoughts and feelings and let people read them and think the whole world cared that much about what I was doing. The reality is I haven't gotten a lot of bad feedback. It's opened some doors, and it's actually made the connection that I was hoping for. So if you want to connect with someone, here's a couple ways. My daughter and I have a journal, and we've actually evolved past it, but it's a private secret journal that only she and I write in, and nobody can get in trouble unless it's, something dangerous, I guess. But she can write things into me about how she feels, about how I've made her feel, about questions she has, anything she wants to say, and she can do it in the privacy of her own room, write it down, and then I'll get this little journal in my room later, and there's a note in there, and I have time to read it and digest it, and I can write something back, put it back on her pillow. The nice part about this is it creates dialogue, and sometimes she'll tell me, I want to tell you this, but don't ask me about it. So I have to respect that from her, but she was able to share. Over time, the journal becomes less and less necessary because you get comfortable with, I said this and there wasn't a bad reaction. So if journaling's not your thing, to another person, maybe just journal to yourself. So write down the stuff in your head that you're thinking about, that you're worried about, that's all consuming, and put it on paper. There is something profound about writing your thoughts in black and white. And what it does, it creates a distance between what's going on in your head, which is all swirled and messy, and what is on the paper. And it keeps you from these ideas, because you are not your thoughts, and you're not your feelings, and you're not your ideas. You can have many of them, but they don't define who you are. You're the person in the spaceship watching all this, right? You are not just a culmination of your thoughts. Email is another great way. My husband and I sometimes do this, where we can write down what we want to say. We're thoughtful about it. We can read over it, make sure that what we intend to say is what's being communicated. The other person can hear it, not react. Because what happens is most of us are so self-conscious and self-aware, self-centered, if you will, that we react. So when someone says something that may hurt our feelings or make us feel really vulnerable, we get defensive and push back. So the act of writing this stuff really helps you put it in a space that can be less vulnerable and less risky. But it opens the door, and it goes back to where we started. Nobody gets me. If nobody gets you, then you're not telling anybody about you. And so there's those opportunities. The other thing I think that's really great, especially in the diabetes world, and I can tell you that nobody who doesn't have diabetes gets what it's like to have hypoglycemia. If you've never had a blood sugar of 45, I can tell you about it, but to actually live through it and know what it is, it's just, to be in that club, you're in the club, and other people don't get it, right? So sometimes it's really cool to find groups of people who are like you, who are experiencing what you do. So I found communities on Twitter, on Facebook, where you really get to see people who really do understand at least some aspect of your life. Nobody's going to understand all of it. Nobody's going to understand everything that you wish. So try that too. So we can always try to find people who might have experienced the same or similar things. So that's the first one, is really, if nobody understands you, you have to take the risk of telling people about you. The second one is to change your expectation. And this is probably a lot more difficult because it requires some inner work. And that inner work is, if you believe that everybody around you should always know what you want, what you're thinking, how you like things all the time, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because the truth is nobody really knows what's going on between your ears. They just don't. And most people do not walk around all consumed with what everybody else that they may come across is doing. Most of the time we get kind of caught in the crosshairs of somebody having a bad day, something you said kind of triggered them, and it's never really about you most of the time. And so if our expectation is that everybody understands how we hurt, how we feel, how we prefer things, we're always going to be disappointed, right? We're always going to be disappointed. So that's something you can change, is to not take things so personally, right? Easier said than done. I totally get it. But if you're feeling really like no one understands and you don't take the initiative to help connect with them, you also have to understand that maybe it's just the way it is and it's really not about you. Those are some big, tough concepts. I get that, but they are very bountiful and rewarding if you can take those steps. So if you're feeling alone or misunderstood today, I really reach out to you. I know it sucks, and we've all been there. Connection is the cure. So if you just need somebody to talk to or email, I'd love to chat with you. You know, shoot me an email sometime. You can connect with me via my webpage. All my social contacts are there as well. But if not me, find somebody that you could maybe share something with, some little thing, and take that risk. And I hope you will be beautifully rewarded.